For the Lakers get an A+ so far. Rob Pelinka has been amazing. I mean, just everything he's done from the trades right after Magic Johnson left to signing all of those free agents last year. Remember that first year with LeBron where it was like it didn't make sense, the free agents they were signing? It's like, wait a second, why are you signing like Michael Beasley and Lance Stevenson and these guys? They don't make sense. Well, then after Rob Pelinka takes over by himself, Magic Johnson leaves, we got KCP, we got Danny Green. You're like, oh, I get it. You're surrounding LeBron with shooters. That makes sense, right? So Pelinka's second offseason, he is acing it again. And he's got Montrezl Harrell, which was the biggest thing. Obviously, the trade for Dennis Schroeder was huge. But I would absolutely have the Lakers as my favorites to win the NBA championship in 2021. Getting Montrezl Harrell to take just the mid-level exception is unbelievable. I think that Trez must have some sort of legit beef with Kawhi Leonard, with Paul George. You know, we heard all of those rumors about like the Clippers who were there before Kawhi got there. Some of those Clippers were kind of upset about how they were pampering Kawhi. I think Montrezl Harrell must have been like the number one player who had problems with how they treated Kawhi. They rolled out the red carpet for Kawhi. They allowed Kawhi to be late to team flights. They allowed Kawhi to take off whatever games he wanted. They allowed Kawhi to live all the way down in San Diego during the season, so he would drive up all the way from San Diego, which is insane. And I guarantee you, Trez couldn't wait to get out of there. And for him to go across the hallway at Staples Center to put on a Lakers jersey that is insane. And so, you know, this is going to be a really interesting season coming up with the Lakers and Clippers dynamic, but I give them an A+ for what they've been able to do. It's pretty special, from Wesley Matthews replacing Danny Green to Dennis Schroeder. He's going to be great just as a facilitator, as a scorer, and then Montrezl Harrell, the reigning sixth man of the year. That is insane. Are they going to play Trez as a backup, though? I wonder. That's really interesting. I mean, do they still have JaVale starting with Trez as the backup? I don't know. The Hawks right now get a B. The Hawks were going to be a C because they gave Danilo Gallinari 3 years, $61 million. And, you know, Gallo is a good player, but he isn't a great fit. Like, what do the Hawks need more than anything? The Hawks need defense, right? Yes, Gallo can hit a three, but he's not a great defender. Hey, Jeffrey Miller, always dropping me on back, dude. I really appreciate that. And so, you know, I like the Gallo sign with the Hawks. 3 years isn't too long, but it's definitely an overpay for Gallinari. He's not a great defender. It's the largest contract for a guy over 30 who's never been an all-star in NBA history. So I still think Gallinari is an overpay, but it's good that they got Chris Dunn, because he is one of the best defenders in the league. So that's good. So I bumped them from a C to a B with the Chris Dunn. The Nets get a B, re-signing Joe Harris. They needed to do that. We'll see what else they do out there. Christian Wood going to the Rockets, 3 years, $41 million. Christian Wood, they were able to afford him because they got rid of Robert Covington. So they get rid of Covington and they clear up some cap space. And with that space, they were able to sign Christian Wood. Wood makes a lot more sense to me for a rebuilding team or a retooling team. Robert Covington is really a win-now player who's a little older, and he will do a lot better job and makes a lot more sense for a team like the Portland Trail Blazers, who are a much more veteran win-now team. We assume that they're going to move James Harden and Russell Westbrook, so they're retooling, and I think Christian Wood makes a lot more sense for what the Rockets are. So Jeffrey Miller asks, should the Atlanta Hawks put Cam Reddish for Kevin Huerter? What do you mean, Jeff? Because Cam Reddish and Kevin Huerter are both on that team right now. So just kind of rephrase that question, man. I'll just look for your chat. You don't have to super chat again, man. Should they put Cam Reddish for Kevin Huerter? I'm not sure what you mean by that. New Orleans. So New Orleans gets a B because, yes, they got Steven Adams, which is good because they lost Derek Favors. But honestly, it's like Steven Adams for me isn't a great fit necessarily because he can't stretch the floor. You didn't have to put Cam at the 2 and yeah, absolutely. Yes, Jeff, I totally agree with that. They should that's probably what they will do. They'll probably put Cam at the 2 and move Kevin Huerter off the bench. I do like Gallinari's scoring his shooting as a replacement for what Kevin Huerter can do. And I think that they can close games now with Chris Dunn because he'll be able to be out there and get a stop if they need that defensive stop to close games. So, and then you'd probably move Reddish to the 3. So, in terms of New Orleans, Steven Adams is obviously a good player. He's a good veteran. He's a good locker room guy, all that stuff. But I'm not sure about Zion Williamson with a center who can't shoot. So I would have loved Christian Wood back to New Orleans, right? Because Christian Wood hits about 37% of his threes. But Steven Adams, you don't really want to clog the paint there with Zion because if you watch Pelicans games last year, you know that Zion hitting those 4 threes in his debut against San Antonio, that was insane because he didn't do that again. He hit less than a 3 per game after that in terms of averages. So you need a center who can kind of stretch the floor and open up the paint for Zion. That's not what Steven Adams does. Now, as a replacement for Derek Favors, sure, Steven Adams is good. But the good news for the Steven Adams thing for the Pelicans, Steven Adams is on an expiring contract. So he's not going to be there for a lot longer. Yes, Steven Adams is going to be good in pick and roll. Like I said, I give it a B. I don't give it an F. Steven Adams is good. He's not my perfect fit there. Do Atlanta Hawks have enough money for John Collins next year? Well, it depends on how much they want to pay John Collins. Yes, they do have money for John Collins, but it's not going to be a max. We'll see if John Collins demands a max. And a trade of John Collins could be coming. They've got Onyeka Okongwu, they've got Clint Capella, and they've got John Collins. There have been rumors about maybe a John Collins trade. Obviously, they would float that out there to see what they could get back because Collins will be an expiring contract, so they're not going to get a whole lot back. But I think that the last week has been definitely not good for John Collins if he wants to remain a Hawk, right? So when they draft Onyeka, I wonder what John Collins is sitting there thinking. And when they're doling out all this money, I wonder what he's thinking as well, because you're right, Jeff, they do want to have enough money to pay him. But remember, to re-sign your own guys, you can go over the salary cap. So just because they're spending this cap space doesn't mean that they're not leaving money for John Collins. You can go over the cap to re-sign your own guys. So a trade for Collins, trading Collins is not out of the question, but the last week hasn't told me anything about them keeping him. If anything, the last week has told me more that they are going to trade John Collins. Okay, so for the 76ers, I'm just going to go ahead and give them an A, because let's quickly recap. Okay, we'll get to the Blazers in a minute. I can see you shouting Blazers here. But we'll get to the Blazers next. Primetime Wombat. Settle down. We'll get to them next. But right now, I want to talk about Philly. Let's just recap what the Sixers have done in the last week. They got rid of their worst contract in Al Horford. They replaced him in free agency with a cheaper option, a much cheaper option in Dwight Howard, who's going to come off the bench, back up, and be happy about it after he just won a championship. and had his best statistical season in about 5 years as a backup off the bench. So I think Dwight Howard, this is a reunion of Daryl Morey and Dwight Howard, only this is what Daryl wanted Dwight to do, right? He wanted Dwight back then in 2014 when he got Dwight to Houston as a free agent. Yes, sir, Jeff. Thanks a lot, says Jeffrey Miller. So when he got Dwight Howard to Houston, he wanted him to do this. He wanted him to, run more pick and roll with James Harden. He wanted this type of Dwight Howard, but Dwight was unwilling to do that. If you remember all that drama, right? But then Dwight accepts that role on the Lakers. He wins a chip, and he does it coming off the bench. So Daryl Morey replaces Al Horford with a much cheaper and maybe better option here with Dwight. It's great. He gets shooting. He trades for Seth Curry, trades for Landry Shamet. Shamet is going to Brooklyn. Who else was it that they added? Somebody could remind me. But the point is that I give Philly an A for what they've been able to do over the last week. It's insane. All right, so Portland. You're not going to like this. I'm going to give them a C+ because for free agency, but then you would bump it up to a B or a B+ if you include the trades, because I love the Robert Covington deal. But in free agency, it's like, okay, you get Enes Kanter, you get Rodney Hood, you get Derek Jones Jr. Okay, that's decent, but I would have liked to see a little bit more in free agency from Portland. But from the trade side of things, I think it was a great move to get Robert Covington. Remember those side rumors and people speculating about okay, look, they've tried with Portland. I think they've capped out. They've hit a ceiling. They should go ahead and trade away Damian Lillard, trade away maybe a CJ McCollum, and just start rebuilding because it's clear they're not going to get any better than this. I think if I'm a Blazers fan, I am so glad that talk was BS and that they were not buying it in the Blazers front office with Neil O'Shea. They are going for it, right? They are getting Derek Jones Jr. They are getting Robert Covington. They're trading away first-round picks to go for it with the Blazers. If I'm a Blazers fan, I love that. Derek Jones Jr., if you don't watch a lot of Heat games, you wonder what you're getting. What you're getting is a guy who obviously is insane athletically. He won the dunk contest, got the nickname Airplane Mode because of how athletic he is. But his offense is still coming around. He's not really a three-point shooter. I think he shot about 29% from three in his first year. He's bumped that up to 32%. His free throws are 77%. So he's not much of a shooter. His wingspan is insane. So he was really effective in the Miami Heat's zone defense. So he's more defensive help than he is offensive, but that's okay. You get a ton of offense already from Dame, from CJ, from Rodney Hood, and now from Robert Covington. So, Derek Jones Jr. is really a minor move here. And then re-signing Rodney Hood is good for the $6 million. The torn Achilles, but I think he's going to be okay because he had a lot of interest from outside. So all in all, I'm going to give Portland a B for everything they've done the last week. Sacramento Kings re-signing De'Aaron Fox and signing him to the max. I give that a C+. You had to do it. Do I feel like De'Aaron Fox is a max player? No. The no-brainers here from the 2017 draft class were Jason Tatum and Donovan Mitchell. But De'Aaron Fox, if you're Sacramento, you have to do this. I mean, you have to give De'Aaron Fox the max. You have no other options. And Rockets flipped Rocco for 2 firsts and Christian Wood. Sort of. Yeah, Austin Tucker says. What they did was they flipped Rocco for the 2 firsts. They freed up some space to be able to sign Christian Wood. So Wood wasn't a part of that. Trade. But you're right. They essentially did that, and that's a very good move for the Houston Rockets. That's why I give them an A. A lot of people wanted Christian Wood. A lot of people thought Christian Wood was the sleeper of free agency because he's been so good the past couple of years. So I want to move on to Utah here. Well, just to wrap up Sacramento, I think they had to do this because if you're a small market team like Sacramento, you can't afford not to pay your guys. And if you draft a guy like De'Aaron Fox, who is your best player, even though he's not an all-star, you can't lowball him and have him not signed. Like a place like Sacramento doesn't get big-time free agents. They're a team that you have to re-sign your own guys. You have to. So it's a C+ for me. From Utah, I give them a B+ because they get Jordan Clarkson back on a 5-year deal. That's a long time. These NBA players, they don't want to be signing 5-year deals, okay? So that's a win for the team. They want to be signing like 2-3-year deals so that they can cash out again in 2 years. That's why when you see the ball is in the player's court, when the player has leverage, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, these guys, they sign these small 2-year deals, right? But they get Jordan Clarkson on a 5-year deal. So $52 million, that's good for them. Also, Derek Favors, 3 years, $30 million. He was really good when he was on the Jazz. Derek Favors, to me, is a really good backup option for Rudy Gobert. Rudy, he gets in foul trouble a lot. We saw that in the playoffs as well. Derek Favors, he knows that system. He is and he's only 29 years old. He's a sneaky young guy. I kind of would figure Derek Favors would be in his early 30s. Jordan Clarkson took the Jazz's bench from being god-awful, one of the worst in the league, to just about average after he got there. And if you guys watched that, sorry, I just got a text here, and that's very interesting. Anyway, yes. So that's what I'm talking about with Utah. Now for Washington, Davis Bertans, 5 years, $80 million. Good for them. Bertans isn't much defensively. He can't really create his own shot. But he does shoot a lot of threes. He actually hit more threes at a higher rate than Duncan Robinson last year. So Smonex is trying to spam me and punk me and fake me out by saying that the Bulls signed Anthony Davis to a 2-year, $60 million deal. He's just having fun. That did not happen. The Hawks signed Chris Dunn. Are the Hawks a playoff team? No. I'm sorry, but what they did just then, Warriors. Okay, Dong wants to know about the Warriors. So look, dude, the Warriors haven't done anything in free agency. I don't know what you want to talk about yet with them. We still have time to go. The Golden State Warriors have, a mid-level exception to spend. Let's see. Shams reports that DeAnthony Melton is staying with the Grizzlies. That's very good for them. He's one of their best defenders. But yeah, the Warriors, they've got Kelly Oubre, obviously, in the trade. Still reeling from the loss of Klay Thompson. They've got James Wiseman. They could trade him and upgrade. They're paying a ridiculous number in the luxury tax. So the Warriors spending more in free agency, to me, is suspect. And, that's why I think we haven't really heard the Warriors' name in any of these tweets from Woj or from Shams. The name Warriors hasn't popped up because every dollar the Warriors spend in free agency, they have to spend, I think, about another $4 in luxury tax. And they're already paying, a ridiculous amount of luxury tax. So, for example, they're paying Kelly Oubre Jr. $14 million. But if you add the luxury tax on top, they're paying $60 million just for Kelly Oubre Jr. So, a lot of people, me included, said, who would be a great fit for the Warriors is Avery Bradley, who would be a guard who can make up for some of Klay Thompson's defense, right? Great. Let's sign Avery Bradley. You can afford him. If you give the whole biannual exception for Avery Bradley, Warriors, you're in good shape. Dude, that is a lot of money, and they're already spending a lot of money. So I'm not sure if we're going to see much movement from the Warriors here. Fred VanVleet, Fred VanVleet needs to stay in Toronto. You're right. Fred VanVleet probably should stay in Toronto. But guess what? we still haven't seen what the Knicks are going to do with all of their cap space. They have $35 million in cap space. So what are the Knicks going to do? Until we see the word Knicks and who they sign, we're not going to know about Gordon Hayward, and we're not going to know about Fred VanVleet, because those are the two top free agents out there. And right now, the team with the most cap space left is the New York Knicks. And so, the New York Knicks hold that card, okay? Because the Hawks have already spent on Gallinari and now Chris Dunn. They have a little left, but until the Knicks do something, we won't know. So Hez wants to know about the Lakers, and then someone else mentioned the John Wall trade. So let's talk about those two things and Serge Ibaka. We're going to talk about Serge, the Lakers, and we're going to talk about Nate wants to know about the Celtics. So, all right, Nate. All right, fine. We'll talk about those four things, and then we're out real quick. Let's start with the John Wall trade. Why not? Real quick, the John Wall trade. Who is John Wall to request a trade? I'm sorry. He's been making a max salary for 2 years sitting on his couch, and now he gets offended that they may be shopping around looking maybe for Russell Westbrook. Like, dude, who are you? I'm sorry. If I'm a Wizards fan, John Wall wants out. Who cares what John Wall wants? Sorry. Like, I know that sounds mean or sounds cold-blooded, but like, I'm not, I don't care. If John Wall wants out, I'd be like, great. I don't care. Go out there. And by the way, if you really want out, we're not going to trade you right now. Like, for me, do not expect a John Wall trade. Do not expect a John Wall trade right now unless it's for Russell Westbrook and Houston lowers their asking price. Because if I'm the Wizards, why trade John Wall now when his trade value is at its lowest? If I'm running the Wizards, I say, okay, John, you want out? Go out there, start the season, show how good you are, show how good you still are, show that those workout videos when you're blowing past Kyrie and dunking are legit, and then we'll trade you because your trade value will go up, okay? And I think right now John Wall's probably just really emotional, and his feelings are hurt from the Russell Westbrook rumors. He says he wants out. I think they start the year, they start playing well. I think his emotions will come down and that'll go away. But let's say they do trade John Wall. Who would they trade John Wall to? I think they would trade him either to the Knicks because they can afford him. Would the Knicks do that? That is something maybe the Knicks would do. Or they would trade him for bad contracts, like a Russell Westbrook, like a Blake Griffin. And if you don't want to trade him for Blake or for Russ, by the way, if you're going to trade him for Blake, you have to add something else to it because Blake has 1 year less on his contract. Then you're going to have to give up some assets if you want to move John Wall. And that's getting rid of Deni Avdija. That is getting rid of Rui Hachimura. That is getting rid of some serious draft picks. You can't just let John Wall go to any old team that has cap space. So that's what it means to trade John Wall. All right, so or they could just do a total tear down and trade Bradley Beal. I want to touch on the Lakers real quick because someone was asking about them real quick. For me, the Lakers are easily now my favorites to win the 2021 NBA championship. They bring back the two most important pieces, which were LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I don't care that these players opted out like Rajon Rondo or a Markieff Morris. I don't care they lost Dwight Howard. I don't care that they lost Danny Green. Frankly, all of those guys are replaceable. Last year, you could have replaced all those guys with not anyone, but guys that you could find with minimum contracts or a biannual exception or whatever, and you would have still won that championship because you had LeBron and AD. That is who matters on this team. But to that team, instead they add Dennis Schroeder, Montrezl Harrell. They replace Danny Green with Wesley Matthews. That is adding LeBron and AD plus depth, plus serious depth. You get the sixth man of the year, and I believe Dennis Schroeder was second in six-man voting. Remember last year in the playoffs, it was hard to figure out who the Lakers' third best player was because the Lakers didn't have a third best player. They didn't. It was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope one day. The other day it was Rajon Rondo. It was never Kyle Kuzma, by the way. And LeBron said, we need Kuz to be our third best player to win a chip. Actually, no, you didn't. It turned out all you need was LeBron and AD. So now you add Montrezl Harrell to this, and you add Dennis Schroeder to this. It's over. It's over. I'm sorry, but the Lakers are easily the favorites to win the chip. Easily. And, I think from a talent standpoint, Brooklyn is going to have something to say, but we'll see about that. I still think that they can I talk about Christian Wood, please? We did already talk about Christian Wood, but I give the Lakers the Rockets an A for this. I think that trading Robert Covington made sense because Rocco is more of a win-now player. And if Houston is truly a rebuilding team, Christian Wood, with the cap space that they freed up by getting rid of Rocco, a really good move. And they got two picks too. Should the Warriors trade for Joe Harris? No. Why would the Nets do that? The Nets wouldn't do that, dude. The Nets would not do that. I'm sorry. No. Why would the Nets help out the Warriors like that? The Nets are trying to win now. What could the Warriors give them? That's not going to happen, dude. Blazers, Philip S., we already talked about the Blazers. I give them a B for everything that they've done. I think that Derek Jones, Enes Kanter, and Rodney Hood are all blah free agents. They're all blah. They're not difference makers, okay? So in free agency, they get a C, but the Rocco trade, they get an A. So I give them a B. Portland is a B right now. So there was one other thing that we were going to talk about. What was it? Gosh, I can't remember. Andrew Wiggins for Buddy Hield now. Let's see. Does anyone want to do a super chat? That would be great. Sixers are not going into rebuild mode. All right, guys. So our two biggest targets left in free agency, which is what we're waiting for, is Gordon Hayward and Fred VanVleet. Right now, we're all just waiting to see what the New York Knicks are going to do because they are the ones who hold the most cap space right now after Atlanta spent some on Danilo Gallinari and on Chris Dunn. So really, we're going to wait and see. So we have yet to see what Serge Ibaka is going to do. Marcus Gasol hasn't gone anywhere. And maybe the Lakers get Marcus Gasol. That would be a sweep, right? Yes. Oh, there we go. Hola. Have Dallas and Miami given up on Giannis? No. Hola, here's the deal. Let me just say this about let's start with Miami, Hola. So Miami had $21 million in cap space, Hola, meaning they could sign whoever they want if they let go of their own players. But instead, what they have done is re-sign their own players. They have re-signed Goran Dragic, Myers Leonard. We're waiting to see on Jay Crowder. And if they did that, that meant that they're still keeping cap space for Giannis, right? So the thing that would tell us that Miami has given up on Giannis is if they sign guys to long-term deals that tie up cap space next year. They haven't done that, so they're all in on Giannis. And it is the same thing with the Dallas Mavericks right now. What have the Mavs done? They have signed, I think it's Alec Burks, right, to try to make up for Steph Curry shooting. So yeah, man, I say Dallas and Miami are still all in Toronto on Giannis. So interesting question, but yeah, I think that's the answer there. Okay, so we also got someone doing a super chat that I missed. Here it is, John. So John's just being nice. Okay, thanks, man. All right, so let's see. Okay. All right. So the Pistons. Someone, Kyan, wants to know about the Pistons badly, and so does Prime Time Wombat. So look, the Pistons are doing excellent. I think that their new front office guy, Troy Weaver, he comes over from the Oklahoma City Thunder. He was a guy that people wanted to run their front office for years. And I think now we're seeing why because of what he's done in the past week. If you're a Pistons fan, you are super excited because you've got 3 top 20 draft picks, which is excellent. And then I think you've had some really good pickups. Obviously, Jeremy Grant, are you kidding? Mason Plumlee, whatever. Look, no one's super excited about Mason Plumlee, but that's a cheap deal for Mason Plumlee. 3 years, $25 million. They've gotten rid of Luke Kennard. I think that the Pistons have absolutely set themselves up as one of the extremely exciting young rebuilding teams. And I don't care, dude. Don't get rid of Blake Griffin. That's fine. Blake is a really good locker room guy. I think he was an all-star 2 years ago before he hurt himself again. I think Pistons basketball is going to be really fun to watch next year, especially if you're one of these people like me who really like to see how rookies develop. I think, did they get Saddiq Bey? Was it Saddiq Bey? I think they got Saddiq Bey, and he's, to me, going to be one of these guys that we talk about next year, a rookie that we're going to talk about. So, yeah, dude, I love what the Pistons have been able to do over the last week. Raptors. Yeah, the Raptors are hoping that Fred VanVleet comes back. The Raptors have not made any significant moves. And the Raptors, we didn't think that the Raptors would make any big moves because like Miami and like Dallas, the Raptors are all in on the Giannis sweepstakes. Okay, so these teams, the Raptors, the Heat, and the Mavericks, because they're going for Giannis, they can't tie up money for next year. So you can't sign a guy to a multi-year contract because next summer you want as much cap space for Giannis. Okay, so you're not going to see a big free agency from Dallas, Miami, or Toronto other than re-signing their own guys. So it is huge for Toronto to get Fred VanVleet back, to get Serge Ibaka back. It's huge for them because those are the only guys that they can sign are their own guys back because it doesn't kill their cap space. Nicholas Wynn, just saying what's up with a super chat, man. I really appreciate that. So, yeah, man, how do you like what the Pistons did in free agency? We just talked about them, but yeah, I love what they did. And I don't hate the fact that they got rid of Christian Wood either, because, you know, the reason why Christian Wood should Charlotte trade Melo for Russ? No, dude. No. No, you would never. Okay, I get it. Zion Bar is spamming, and he says, what about James Harden? I think that the Rockets don't have to trade James Harden. I mean, there's no rush. You know, you want to wait until you get the best deal, and they shouldn't let a guy with 2 years left on his contract dictate where he wants to go. You don't have leverage, okay? You know James Harden. James Harden wants to play basketball. He wants to win that scoring title. James Harden ain't going to hold out. And by the way, if you're James Harden, you don't hate that they're going to wait until you don't hate that you have to go to training camp and you have to start the season in a Rockets jersey if you're James Harden. Why? This is a great year to be hated. There's no fans in the stands. Who's going to boo you? You don't care that you're James Harden, you're John Wall. That's why we're getting all these trade requests. All these stars are requesting trades because they know they're going to roll into these arenas. There's no one in the stands to boo you at your home game, right? So there's no rush to trade James Harden. So they're good. Or John Wall whatsoever. Howell Neto signed with the Wizards. Bobby Portis is going to the Bucks. Wow. Okay, Bobby Portis, a major front court addition for the Milwaukee Bucks from the Knicks, obviously. He is a good offensive player. He is one of the 10 worst defensive players in the NBA for me. But if there's any team that can hide someone on defense, it's the Milwaukee Bucks, especially in the front court. They've got, obviously, Giannis, and they've got Brook Lopez. They have a very good defensive front court. So Bobby Portis, that's a good addition for the Bucks. It really is. He is a very good offensive player, so he's going to contribute. Okay, so this guy, Pierce Homer, has been asking about the Celtics over and over. So look, here's the deal with the Celtics, man. I get the D-Rose thing, yeah. So the Celtics are so far over the luxury tax, they don't have any money. The Celtics have no money. So they're not going to be taking on new contracts. So the Celtics haven't done a deal yet because they don't have money, and I think they need to see where Gordon Hayward goes. Now, obviously, Gordon Hayward leaves, that opens up money for them, but they're not going to take on a big contract here. I am really interested to see about Brandon Ingram, because Brandon Ingram hasn't moved yet. Thoughts on Mavs moves? I think the Mavs have done well. Let's recap their moves real quick. Let's recap the Dallas Mavericks moves, because they're kind of smaller moves like an Alec Burks, but it's always good to get all of the names. So go to Dallas Mavericks here. It's a 3-team deal. Yep, Alec. All right, Trey Burke, not Alec Burks. And Tim Hardaway Jr. is staying. Seth Curry is leaving, and obviously they get our man Josh Richardson. All right. So look, let's just talk about Josh Richardson's fit real quick on the Dallas Mavericks. He's a very good player. He's a good sort of outside scorer. He's very athletic. He's got sort of the mid-range game. He's obsessed with mid-rangers. He's not a big three-point shooter. But he's going to have great looks, open looks too, especially with Luka setting him up. So I really like that from the Mavericks. They try to replace some of Seth Curry's shooting with Trey Burke. And, I think that their thinking there was that they can get a lot cheaper option to hit threes in a Trey Burke or an Alec Burks, because they're cheaper options, or a Wesley Matthews. My point is that Seth's production is something that's replaceable. What Josh Richardson does is less replaceable. And they figured that they could turn Seth Curry into Josh Richardson, make up for some of Seth's three-point shooting with a cheaper option. And that's exactly what they've done. I don't expect the Mavericks to make any big moves because they're retaining cap space for Giannis next offseason. So, all right, guys. So, look, that's it. I just wanted to jump in and check in because we're not going to put out an official, free agency grades video until, maybe Monday, because we want to see where these big dominoes go. We want to see Serge Ibaka, Fred VanVleet, and Gordon Hayward before we hand out grades. So in the meantime, just going to do these updates to check in with you guys. So that's it for this morning, guys. Thanks so much for checking in, and we will see you next time we have a big update, probably tomorrow.